Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 10 transfer plans. This is a weekly series where I give you my initial thoughts around my team and some possible transfer strategies that I could have for the upcoming game weeks. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So before we take a look at Game Week 10 and beyond, let's very briefly review Game Week 9. And I would love to know down below in the comments how many points did you get in Game Week 9? And did you manage to beat my 71, which was actually a pretty decent week, at least for me. So I've gone up from about 3 million to around 2 million. It's about a 1 million place green arrow. And it is much easier to get a green arrow down at 3 million. And I'm just really happy. I'm not expecting to suddenly go from 3 mil to top 10k in a few weeks. I need to take this step by step. And at the moment, we're almost breaking into the top 2 million. Then it'll be the top 1 million, then the top 500k. And I'm just going to go step by step like that and not rush it, because realistically, we've only had 9 game weeks. We've got so much of the season left. Most of our chips still to play as well. And it's in that back half of the season that you can really make up some rank with strategy and so on. And it has been a tough start to the season. So I'm going to take the wins where I can. 71 points at the time of me recording, by the way, which is directly after the Liverpool-Arsenal game. We know that the bonus points can update, and as a result, it might be that I'm on more or less, but probably less than 71 points. So let's go through the team very quickly and just the players that impressed and the players that unfortunately didn't. And starting with the players that didn't particularly impress, Arsenal defence once again. I wasn't really expecting much without SALAH against one of the better attacks in the league in Liverpool. I wasn't expecting a clean sheet. But 1 point between them really isn't fantastic. Gabriel obviously went off injured before the 60th minute, hence the 1 point. We'll discuss Gabriel moving forward in the next section. And then Raya getting a 0-pointer. Made 2 saves, not 3, so didn't get the save point. He gets booked and concedes 2 goals, so he might as well have not featured. And funnily enough, Fabianski actually started ahead of Areola and gets me 3 points. So I would have actually been better off starting Fabianski, who I didn't even think would play the game, than actually having Raya in my team. And Raya has just been such a massive letdown. So that's really disappointing. But then again, it was Liverpool, so I wasn't expecting that much. Then I had the benching headache. I suppose Gabriel was involved in that. I basically needed to start 2 of Gabriel, 8, Nuri, Vandenberg, and Davis. A lot of people were suggesting that I benched Nate Nori, and I'm so glad I didn't, because I just know how attacking this man is. He goes and gets another goal. I think that is now 3 goals and 2 assists in 9 games this season. The man is just so incredibly attacking. Like, he's got more attacking returns than a lot of the attackers that we pick in our teams, and we say they are brilliant and have so much attacking threat. I just think he's comfortably, even if you don't think Wolves are a good defence, I think he's comfortably the standout cheap defender at the moment, and I'm so delighted that I've got him in already. And then Rico Lewis finally goes and gets a clean sheet. It's been a long time coming. We've been saying for a while now, Man City's defensive data is pretty good. They actually finally get one. I think it was Archer. Southampton hit the crossbar at one point as well, so it could have been another one of those games where they only concede 1 real chance, and it ends up going in the back of the net. So, yeah, pretty happy that I chose to start 8 Nuri. Vandenberg and Davis essentially blanking. I say blanking. Leif Davis finally got his assist, but he comes away with 2 points because he got booked and conceded 4 goals. And this just goes to show what we've been kind of saying, and a lot of you told me before I even picked him, because he's playing for such a poor team, even if he does get an attacking return, because he's losing all the bonus points for conceding, because he's losing actual points for conceding goals as well, he's very unlikely to go out there and get you a monster haul unless he gets a lucky clean sheet or Ipswich have a really good performance. So I might end up starting Leif Davis next week, which we'll discuss in a second. But yeah, he finally gets his assist, and it's second on my bench, and he only gets 2 points anyway. The midfield, there were some big scores, and Burmo and Palmer getting me 15 and 10. And Burmo is just an absolute legend. He just, on penalties, 90 minutes, takes set pieces, great fit. Like, he's just everything you want from an FPL asset. I think he's up at like 7.7, 7.8 million now in Burmo. He just keeps rising in price. And I'm so happy that I jumped on him at the start of this good fixture run. And every week, even if the fixture's not good particularly, every week I'm just so happy having Burmo in my team. Cole Palmer finally gets a return in my team, which is nice. I think he actually did get me an assist a couple of weeks ago, but it's nice to get what looks like bonus points as well to go alongside that. Whether it be 9, 10 points once it updates, it's just a really good score. And these aren't necessarily the games that I desperately wanted him for anyway. I picked him on my Game Week 7 wildcard, really for Game Week 12 and beyond, and I just hoped that he could get me some points over this spell here. So the fact that he is, that's absolutely fantastic. And I'm really, really happy that he goes out and gets that score. Rodgers coming off in the 53rd or 57th minute. It was before 60 minutes for just 1 point. He was actually really, really, I wouldn't say terrible, that's harsh. It wasn't his best performance. He looked a little bit fatigued. I am now looking at him, and in the next 4 games, he's got Spurs, Liverpool, and Chelsea. And I'm just thinking now, I've got Dibbling on my bench as my 8th attacker. You'll see in a second with my possible transfer plans. Maybe getting another attacker just to rotate with Rodgers or replacing Rodgers for this trickier fixture run, it might be the best plan moving forward. Because I just don't like the fact that I have to start him every single week. Because some weeks, I'm perfectly happy doing so. But I don't like to rely on him every single week. The big transfer and the big mistake this week really was I sold Saka for Foden. I actually thought Saka would feature. I told people that all week that I know Arteta is a liar. And I think the fact that Arteta was so sure about him probably not being available and then obviously not being in the training video from Sky Sports, I just put 2 and 2 together and I was like, Saka's probably going to play. But I didn't really have the bench cover and I didn't want to massively risk it. I had 3 free transfers and I just thought, I think Foden could do incredibly well against Southampton. Even if Saka does play, I still want to make the move for Foden. And I would do it again. And it didn't pay off this time, but I'm still glad I went for it because you've got to be a little bit aggressive in FPL and it won't always work out. So it obviously has lost me points. It's also lost me at least 1 transfer, probably 2, because I'm now going to have to sell Foden probably in the near future as well. So it hasn't panned out the way I wanted, but you never know. If I decide to keep Foden in the coming weeks, maybe he'll get the monster haul against Bournemouth or Brighton. You just never know with FPL. The front line was a bit of a mixed bag. Solanke was so poor from an FPL perspective once again. He's just not taken any shots. Across the last 3 games, he's had 2 shots and 0.1 XG in combination. Not per 90, 0.1 XG in combination. It's about 0.03 XG per 90 he's averaged over the last 3 games. He's genuinely playing like a central to central defensive midfield role. I know we said this of Kane in the past, but that was Harry Kane, and Solanke's just not getting chances to score goals. Spurs were actually very disappointing in Game Week 9, but yeah, Solanke is just, he's not it in this role that he's playing at the moment. So I'm looking at the amount I'm spending on him, and I'm just not impressed. Haaland, triple captain fail. I'll be honest, it is a massive fail. I said anything less than about 10 to 12 points would have been a fail. Even 9 I wouldn't have been particularly happy with, but because he missed 3 or 4 big chances, he didn't even get bonus points. So 6 points tripled. Listen, at least it wasn't a blank, I suppose. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Because listen, he got 2.33 XG. That is more XG, and I know people don't like XG, but he got more high-quality chances than he did against Ipswich, than he did against West Ham. The argument for not triple captaining him for a lot of people was that KDB wasn't there. That just proved let me get my words out. That just proved to not be particularly true because he still got the chances. He just didn't bloody convert them. And it is typical. I've just had a terrible relationship with Haaland this season. But listen, like I said, it wasn't a blank. 6 points tripled, 18 points. At least it helped to contribute towards a green arrow this week. The real hero for me, and he's been the real hero 2 of the last 3 weeks, was Cunha with a 9-pointer. The man is a bonus points machine. Whenever he scores, he's so clear on bonus points. He's on all corners, by the way, for Wolves, which is absolutely unbelievable, apart from when Sarabia came on. But he's taking all corners pretty much. Some free kicks. We think he'll be on penalties. He's pretty good for 90 minutes almost every week. The fixtures are there. Just comfortably my favourite pick that I had on my Game Week 7 wildcard. I'm seeing obviously a lot of people looking to bring him in now, and I think he's a great transfer in. I'm just hoping he stays as a bit of a differential because I've enjoyed owning him at this low ownership. So yeah, that was the team. 71 points at the time of me recording. Again, bonus point dependent. A green arrow. Let's now look ahead to Game Week 10 and how we can hopefully get another green arrow next week. So guys, moving on to Game Week 10, this is the way that the team is currently lining up. I've got 3 free transfers and 0.9 million in the bank. So a little bit of flexibility, and there are various moves that I could make. I'm going to just go through my team very briefly one by one and discuss the players. And then in the next section, I've got some possible transfer combinations that I'm considering at this early stage. I'm considering everything from rolling the transfer, because if you look at the team, it's actually okay, all the way to using all 3 of them. The only thing that I've not currently got lined up is a hit, but you just never know in FPL. So the first thing to discuss is that double Arsenal defence. So Gabriel, like I said, went off injured pre-60. There are like online physios that seem to give prognosis of what's happened in the game as it's happening. A couple of the online physios have suggested that it could be an MCL injury, which is nowhere near as bad as an ACL injury, by the way, but it could keep him out for anywhere from sort of 1 to 6 weeks. It could also just be that he jolted his knee and he's absolutely fine. The issue is with Arsenal, with Arteta, we are just not going to find out probably whether Gabriel is fine or not. I could just bench him this week regardless. Like, I've got 8 Nuri, Davis and Lewis. Assuming they all start, great. I've even got Van den Berg on the bench. Against Fulham away, don't expect much because Brentford aren't very good defensively, but I guess I could get away with not selling him regardless this week and not starting him. But longer term, I just don't know if I do want double Arsenal defence. I don't want to knee-jerk too much, but they've had some decent fixtures and they're not keeping clean sheets. Raya doesn't make many saves, and Gabriel's just not going to score a bullet header every week. So even if they do start improving and keeping more clean sheets, it doesn't feel like it did last season where you desperately need a double up. Like, if they do start keeping clean sheets, and I've still got one of them, great. At least I have one Arsenal defender to cover. Like, the fixtures aren't even necessarily there. Like, we keep speaking about from Game Week 12 onwards. If I just bring the fixtures up, it's Forest, West Ham, United, Fulham. Then it goes into Everton, Palace, Ipswich, Brentford. Maybe from like 16 to 18, the fixtures are quite nice. But overall, I don't even look at the fixtures. So you've got to own them for that spell. And we have to remember that Raya's not going to make as many saves, especially if they are easier games. He might have the clean sheet. So I actually think out of Raya and Gabriel, unless Gabriel is really injured long term and it's a serious issue, I'm recording this directly after the game, so I don't know. I actually think Raya is the one I would rather lose out of the two, because at least Gabriel does carry that attacking threat. Raya just isn't making the saves. And we spoke about in those first 5 games, he was making so many saves and it just wasn't sustainable. Like, look at last year. Raya averaged like 1.7, 1.8 saves per 90 because Arsenal just don't concede enough shots for him to be getting those save points. So when they do concede, it's not even like he gets like a 3 or 4 pointer like you often get with Flecken. He's getting you 2 or 6 most weeks. So yeah, I'm not desperate to sell the pair of them, or one of them, I should say, but I also wouldn't mind it. I think the only way that I would sell one of them is if Gabriel is injured long term, or I was trying to make a transfer that would help me upgrade in another position. For example, there is a 3 transfer combination that I'm looking at that allows me to get Foden up to Salah. And to do that, I need to downgrade one of Raya or Gabriel as well as another move. So I wouldn't mind selling one of Raya or Gabriel, but it would have to be in order to allow me to make an upgrade elsewhere. Otherwise, I would probably just keep them because there aren't many defenders or goalkeepers that I am that desperate to own at the moment. Regarding the rest of the defence, I'm actually okay with it at the moment. Like, Lewis isn't a player that I want to hold particularly long term. And if Gabriel is fit, I have even looked at the idea of benching Lewis this week and starting some of my other defenders. Because after this, the fixtures aren't great. Even though his minutes have been good to this point, I do wonder about the sustainability of that. And he does pick up dangerous positions, but he's also not getting lots of clear-cut chances. Like, if you look at his data, it's good. But for the positions he's picking up, you would expect it to be better. He often just is in the position, but doesn't get on the ball in that position. Like, he's not getting clear-cut opportunities or creating them. So listen, I do like Lewis, and I'm probably planning on starting him this week now, but he's probably not a player that I can foresee myself owning much longer term. I could even sell him going into sort of Game Week 11, Game Week 12. But that's the situation right now. He's okay to keep. The other 3 are just okay for their price. They are all playing for pretty terrible defences. So Davis, Aït-Nouri and Vandenberg. I'll do Vandenberg first. I think he will drop out of the 11 at some point, or at least be rotated. I don't think his minutes will continue to be as good as they are. He actually played at left back in Game Week 9, which is where Rico Henry will come back in. So I do wonder about Vandenberg's minutes, and this week I'm perfectly happy just sitting him on the bench. Aït-Nouri and Davis, both incredibly attacking. I don't think many people would have an issue with me having Aït-Nouri in my team, because I think Wolves are better than Ipswich defensively, but also Aït-Nouri's goal threat is an absolute joke. So Aït-Nouri, I'm pretty sure most people would look at and go, do you know what, that's a good pick. The Leaf Davis one, I'll just hold my hands up. It's just not been good. They concede far too many goals. And so therefore, even if Leif Davis does get his assist, which we would expect to keep happening because he's on all set pieces and he's got good data, he's still not going to get a big score unless he somehow pairs that with a clean sheet, which looks so unlikely at the moment. That being said, it is Leicester at home this week. So if I had to start him this week as one final hurrah, I could see myself doing it. In the long term, I wouldn't mind the idea of removing him for a defender playing for a better defence. Even if it's a Chelsea defender from Game Week 12 onwards, someone like Colwell or Fofana, I could see myself doing that. Reece James maybe. But for now, I don't mind if I have to start Leif Davis this week. So defensively, I don't see myself making a transfer unless it's downgrading one of Raya or Gabriel to free up the funds to move elsewhere in my team. The midfield is probably the place that I'm actually most unhappy with my team at the moment. And it hasn't been that way for a long time. I've been very happy with it. But I don't have Saka now. I don't have Salah. And I think they are 2 of the better midfielders to own in FPL. And I've got Rodgers and Dibbling as 2 cheap midfielders. So in an ideal world, I would have a stronger 5th mid than Dibbling. And I would have Salah or Saka instead of Foden. And of course, I had Saka last week. And again, I probably shouldn't have sold him. But I did. So what I'm looking at the moment is Palmer and Mbeumo are absolutely fine. And really, Rodgers is probably fine to keep. I don't want to start him over the next 2 particularly. But if I had to start him this week, it's okay. And I really think he is still a very decent long-term hold. The issue is Dibbling needs to be upgraded in an ideal world. And I'm not overly confident in Foden for the next two, but I transferred him in last week. I still maybe expect him to start Bournemouth, maybe Brighton. And he did quite well in game week 9. Like he created a lot of chances. He was probably unfortunate not to come away with at least an assist. He is taking some set pieces too. I mean, let's see what happens with like De Bruyne being back. Let's see about minutes midweek, and then we'll maybe reassess. I guess I don't mind holding on to Foden, but I'm also not stubborn enough to, like, if I want to reverse the transfer, I'm just going to reverse the transfer. Like, if I want to go back to Saka, I'll do that. And if I want to try and upgrade to Salah, I have no issue just selling Foden straight away. Something I try not to be in FPL is very, very stubborn. And it would be stubborn to keep Foden if I think that selling him would improve my team. So yeah, it's really Dibbling is the main issue here. I'd just like to get a stronger 8th attacker, which then moves us on to the attack. Cunha, very happy having. Lots of people will be looking to move to him this week. I'm expecting him to rise in price. He's the one I'm actually happiest with of the three. Erling Haaland will probably be my captain, and I'll probably keep him. There are situations I could sell him to pivot to Salah, because Salah just continues to return and keeps outscoring Haaland, and he's cheaper. So there is a world in which I sell Haaland and pivot to Salah, especially because I've got 3 free transfers. But I equally don't mind the idea of holding on to Haaland. Like, he's just accumulated 2.3 XG in a single game. I know it was against Southampton, but it goes to show that the man will still get chances. And on a normal day, you'd expect him to convert them. So I don't have an issue with Haaland, but I could see myself pivoting to Salah. On Solanke, I'm not very happy with him. I'm really not. And he's got Ipswich in Game Week 11, which is the one thing that's making me want to hold on to him, but he's just not taking his shots. And so I could see myself this week downgrading him, especially if it does allow me to get someone like Salah into my team as well, or just to move to some of the other cheap forwards like Wood, Wissa, Raul Jimenez. They're all performing incredibly well. Nico Jackson is just, even with more difficult fixtures, continuing to outperform Solanke. So yeah, I could see myself selling Solanke this week. Probably the player in my starting 11, along with Rodgers, that I'm just not particularly happy with starting this week. And I mean, they're playing against each other. It could be a high-scoring game, but Solanke's been so disappointing. So definitely considering taking him out. So there we go. That is the team as things stand. To recap, double Arsenal defence, hesitant as to whether I want to continue. Could see myself removing one. In the midfield, I just want a stronger 8th attacker to maybe rotate with Rodgers. Could see myself upgrading Foden. And then as the front three, Solanke's the real issue. Haaland could be maybe sold if I want to switch to Salah. So as you can tell, there are lots of possibilities this week. And another possibility is just rolling and just saying, you know what, the team's not that bad. Get to 4 free transfers and decide what I want to do next week. So let's take a look at some of those other transfer possibilities and some of the players that I'm currently looking at maybe owning for Game Week 10. So guys, as of right now, again, at this very early stage of the week, this is where I'm currently standing with possible transfers that I could make in my team. And one of the options, like I said, that isn't even on here, is just rolling with the team. If I'd have done nothing last week, I would have still had Saka, and I wouldn't have played the triple captain. And I'm not saying that's a good reason to not do stuff in the future, but sometimes doing nothing is an art, and you don't always have to do something with your team. We call that action bias in psychology, this tendency to want to do something. So maybe the thing to do with my team right now is nothing. However, I do think there are various things I can do with my 3 free transfers that would improve the team overall, might be worth doing. It's about whether I also need to do all of them this week. So option 1 is probably the most straightforward. It would definitely upgrade my team this week, and it also means that I can just assess for one more week as to what I want to do with the premiums. Like, do I want to give Foden another couple of weeks? Maybe he starts again and looks really good, or maybe he's benched. I'm like, do you know what? That is me done. Do I want to sell Haaland? Do I want to buy Salah? Like, there are various things that I'm not sure about at the moment. And so option 1 is just selling Dibbling. And I have 0.9 million, so it'd be Buonanotte that I'd go for from Leicester. He's got Ipswich this week, of course. That would be a clash between Davis, but I could just either bench Davis and start Gabriel if he's available, or I could sell Gabriel if I wanted to, or I could play Van den Berg, or I could just look at Davis and go, I'm never expecting a clean sheet from him anyway. It's for the attacking threat. And they could both definitely get an attacking return in this game. So I actually really like it. Buonanotte is a player that I've been speaking about for a while now. I don't think his minutes are like fully secure, but he does appear to be in their strongest sort of starting 11. So that is definitely one option, is to sell Dibbling, and I think it would be Buonanotte, because I can't get up to some of the other players that I might want to really go for. Option 2 is another option where I only use one free transfer, and that is just selling Solanke, because he's been very disappointing. He's playing actually against a Villa defence that, if you look at the underlying data, they've been better defensively than people are giving them credit for this season. So maybe I just look at it and say, Solanke is not the player that I thought he was going to be for me. Let me just sell him. I'm probably looking at 3 players at the moment, and I'm not disrespecting Chris Wood, but if you look at the long-term fixtures, he might continue to return, and it might be to my own detriment that I'm not looking at him. I think I'd rather either go for the long-term fixtures of someone like a Jackson, or even some of the short-term fixtures are better for someone like a Wissa or a Rao. So I think for me right now, the 3 forwards that I'm currently considering if I were to replace Solanke at the cheaper price is Wissa or Raul Jimenez, and at the more expensive price is Jackson. Jackson just continues to look unbelievable. And this isn't a knee-jerk. If you go onto my social media, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, I posted about wanting Jackson even this week before he scored his goal. So that isn't a knee-jerk from that. I even spoke about Jackson in the Game Week 9 deadline decisions video, by the way, and said how brilliant I think he is. So this isn't a knee-jerk. He's a player that I know I want. My plan was to make the move in Game Week 12, because in Game Week 11, Solanke's got Ipswich. In Game Week 11, Jackson's got Arsenal. So fixtures-wise, that makes no sense to make the move right now. But Solanke has been pretty rubbish, and Jackson just continues to get very big chances every single game. Realistically, though, I think I would just move for Wissa or Rao and just take some of the money out of that forward spot at the moment, especially as it starts to move me towards a structure where I can get another premium in the midfield. So yeah, as of right now, it is a real possibility that I just part ways with Solanke, because as much as I like that Ipswich fixture, I've just not been impressed. In terms of Wissa versus Raul Jimenez, I think Wissa will get more chances from open play, and I think he's playing for the better attack. I think Brentford are a better attack than Fulham. But what I like about Raul Jimenez is that I feel like he's more of a natural sort of number 9, more likely to get you goals in the long term. I also do still think that because Andreas took a pretty awful penalty 2 weeks ago, I think Raul Jimenez could take the next pen. He was actually very unfortunate, by the way, not to come away with an attacking return in Game Week 9. He created 2 big chances for his teammates. He had like 0.4 XG. It was a decent performance again for him. I would be tempted by Raul Jimenez, but I just think the next 4 fixtures are good for both, by the way. But I do really like that Leicester fixture at home for Wissa. Is it in Game Week 12 or 13? So I'm not sure which way I'll go at the moment, but Wissa and Raul are definitely my favourite cheap forwards. The other option, or the other 2 options, is basically get Salah in the team for the next 3 against Brighton, Villa, and Southampton. 2 at home, and then he plays Southampton away. So I've got 2 ways to do this. I either just part ways with Haaland and just say, do you know what, Haaland's got to go to get Salah in, or I make 3 transfers and actually manage to keep Haaland in the team. So my 3 premiums would be Haaland, Salah, and Palmer. And when I say it like that, I'm like, that might be the one to go for. So the first option is Haaland and Dibbling to any of the forwards that I just mentioned in the Salah. It's 2 transfers. I've still got 1 free to use if I were to want to sell Gabriel as well, or I want to use it on anything else. I've got that free. And overall, would I rather Haaland and Dibbling, or even let's say it's Haaland and then Rodgers starting, or having one of those brilliant forwards plus Salah? I would even argue that Salah might be a better captaincy option against Brighton at home than Haaland is against Bournemouth away. It does feel like it might even be an upgrade, and you'd even have money to spare, especially if you go for Wissa or Raul. You're going to be rolling in the money at that stage. You're going to have a couple of million free to use in the future. So I do wonder if it might be the time to pivot. That being said, Haaland has just accumulated 2.3 XG in a single game, and I know he didn't finish those chances, but this almost feels like the worst time to sell Haaland. The time to sell Haaland was when I bought Haaland, which is before he goes on a run of blanking. And I'm not saying that because he's blanked in a few games and he's only got 1 return in 4, that means he can't continue not returning. But we've seen from Haaland over his entire career, he's such an incredible goal scorer. He probably won't continue not returning. So the time to sell Haaland was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. Selling him after he's blanked quite a few times in a row almost feels like I've got the timing wrong there, and I should maybe hold on to him. Let me know what you're currently thinking around Erling Haaland, but I almost feel like I'd quite like to keep Haaland, especially as other people are moving off of him. It's going to reduce his ownership. So option 4, I'll be honest, is probably my second favourite after option 1, which is just Dibbling to Buonanotte. This is, like I said, buying Salah, but whilst keeping Haaland. So I maintain that 3 premium structure with Palmer, Salah, and Haaland. So to do this, I'd have to sell Solanke to one of Wissa or Raul Jimenez. Foden goes to Salah. And then to fund that, I've got 2 ways I can do it. I can either sell Gabriel or I can sell Raya. So I can do Gabriel to someone like Konate or Dallo, or even a £4.5 million defender, and I'd have loads of money to spare at that stage. Or I sell Raya for a goalkeeper 5 million or less. So I could go for an Onana, Leno, Martinez, or I go to a 4.5 or a 4.7. Sanchez at 4.7 could be good, or Verbruggen, or Flecken even. I love this. Like, when I look at it, I'm like, I would prefer Wissa or Raul Jimenez to Solanke. I'd prefer Salah to Foden, and I'm not that desperate to keep double Arsenal defence. It might even be my favoured move right now, but I do wonder, selling Solanke before Ipswich, not giving Foden the time. I've given him one game and then he's gone, and moving off of double Arsenal defence before what is a much better fixture run and Saliba coming back. This does feel like something that could backfire, but I also don't feel like it massively will when I'm bringing in Mohamed Salah and a really good cheap forward that I believe in. So I'd love to know what you think of these options here. I think people will be very keen on option 4. It does mean using all 3 of my free transfers, which isn't an issue, but I have spoken about Game Week 12 for a while now, that there is a fixture swing in Game Week 12, and I do want to go into that with as many free transfers as possible. That being said, I've already got the likes of Cunha and Ait-Nouri. I've got Palmer in my team. If I'm selling Solanke now and Foden, those are 2 of the players that don't have good fixtures from 12 onwards. So I'm almost in a much better position than I'm giving myself credit for in terms of being ready for that Game Week 12 fixture swing. So yeah, if I just go back to my team with those 4 options in mind, very early stages, if this was your team, what would you do? Like I said, I'm everywhere from rolling, making one, making a couple, or potentially using all 3. And I think all of them could be viable. Maybe something will happen midweek. Maybe we'll get an update around Gabriel, or someone will get injured that we don't expect, and it will make my decision a lot easier. But that's what I'm thinking right now. Please let me know down below what you would do. And also let me know down below what are your transfer plans for Game Week 10. So guys, there you have it. Those are my Game Week 10 possible transfer plans, but of course I'll update that throughout the week. If you did enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please do consider doing so. But until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.